This recording will be the analysis of lessons that were created for EPF3100, Teaching in Alternate Contexts. This recording will look at planning for multi-aid classes in a rural and remote setting. The following unit was created for Sandy Plains State School. This school is located 900 kilometres from Brisbane, and it is in a rural setting. Within the school, 35% of the class identifies as an Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander, with 75 to 80 students within the school. It is a small school. Within this class, there are 23 students. This is a multi-age classroom with prep to Year 3 with no Year 3 students in it. There are 4 students whose needs need to be catered for throughout. Student A is in Year 1 and has an intellectual impairment who is working at a pre-prep level. Student B needs extension upon their work in Year 1, and Student C and D are cousins who fight often. To plan this sequence of lessons, firstly the marking guide for the 3 year levels, Prep 1 and 2, were looked at, paying attention to the common conceptual threads throughout. These will then match the achievement standards for the 3 year levels to be able to plan the lessons and further get the content descriptors to match. From analysing the achievement standards and marking guide, the Australian Curriculum English for the 3 year levels was then analysed. It can be seen that the substrand of text structure and organisation within English shows direct links to the similarities that were found from the achievement standard and the marking guide. From this, learning intentions and success criteria were planned to backwards plan by unit. This sequence of lessons will take place at the beginning of a 10-week unit block for English. Through these lessons, students should be able to identify the stages and know the structure of a narrative, know the purpose of the narrative, and through the events know what usually occurs. For example, at the beginning of the text is where we introduce our characters. They should be able to order the events, and at the end of the unit, students will be able to create a written text, depending on their year level, to show their summative understanding of their learning. When planning the unit for the multi-age class, many structural features were thought of. For example, how the multi-age lesson structure would work, the teacher aid and special support services that were in the class, the use of ICTs, and the community connections inserted throughout. When thinking of planning for a multi-age class, there are many things to think of. Through the lessons, it can be seen that the balancing act approach on teaching has been used, where the teacher teaches the majority one thing and then goes and helps the smaller year levels and groups. It helps to cater for all learners at once, where every student is working at their ability level. Within having a multi-age class, there is opportunities to build positive relationships with students of many age, and older students can act like mentors for the younger ones. It can be seen through the lessons that often the younger students at the end work with the older students. It also gives the younger students something to aspire towards. It builds the cooperative skills in a classroom, and through this, the lesson structures can vary from lesson to lesson depending on what is needed for the class. At Sandy Plains State School, there are a number of teacher aides that have been there for a number of years and have deep connections with the students and with the community in the school. With my lessons, I believe I have used the teacher aid time to the best I believe I could. The teacher aides rotate through the groups, so every student has time with a teacher aide, and to consolidate their learning by themselves. I have tried to make the preps flow from teacher to teacher aide to independent, while the other ones can have some independent time more. It can be seen through the lesson plans that the teacher aides are in the green colours, and they spend equal time with all year levels, so every student can have the extra resource. Within the school, there are a number of support specialist staff that are sometimes at the school. As some of them rotate through other schools and go to PDs, they are not always consistent within the class. There have been some modifications that are used to help student A with their work, but due to it not being consistent, I've mostly not included them in my lesson plans, and if they are there, they can help, but if they are not, my students are not disadvantaged from it in any way. ICT use within the classroom is important. It can engage and deepen the students' understanding and what they are working on. This is understood, and this is why the interactive smartboard was used throughout the lessons for ICT. The students help to create the storyboard that is interactive on the smartboard, and they also view the picture books on a bigger screen. The teacher also uses it as a formative tool when recording and retelling stories on their laptop. Due to being limited in the ICT throughout the lessons, it was included as much as it could be. It is acknowledged that community connections are important, and that is why they are included within the lesson sequence. It is important for students to connect their learning to a community or their local environment. For example, these books that are chosen, Koala Loo and Plastic Magic, have deep connections to the outback Australia, which is where in this case students live. They see the dirt roads and the native animals. These have been integrated within their unit. It can be seen through the lesson sequence that there are 4 main pedagogical features used. These are collaborative learning, gradual release of responsibility, the 8 ways of learning, and the maker model for differentiation. These will be explored deeper. The first pedagogical feature that was used was the gradual release of responsibility. This can be seen and evident, especially in Lesson 2. It can be seen that the teacher demonstrates how to complete an activity, they do it as a whole class, and then they go to their groups to deepen their understanding. This allows the students to gain an understanding through more than just the teacher talking, and they can then go and conceptualize their learning in their groups. To differentiate for all the students within the class, the maker model for differentiation was used. This includes the content, the process, the product, and the environment that was changed. It can be seen that student A often works with the preps at their pre-prep level, or sometimes gets the one-on-one help from the specialist. That is not always the case, and therefore they work with the preps mostly and sometimes join in with the year ones. The way that they can complete their work is a little bit different. Student A can decide to draw or verbalize their learning instead of writing. Student B, who needs to be extended, works with the year ones mostly, but then can go on and do the independent activity for the year ones and twos, and sometimes works with the year 2 group. Finally, the environment. Students C and D often can't sit together, and this is taken into account. Though in the last lesson, the teacher is trying to build the positive relationships within the class, therefore letting them sit and work together to build this partnership, so then overall the kids all get along in the class and it doesn't have to be catered for anymore. There are many different ways to differentiate, and this is the way that it was chosen. Continuing on, collaborative learning was also a pedagogical feature used. It can be seen throughout all the lessons that the students work in groups and in pairs, and they also work with the older year levels in the closure activities of the lessons. Collaborative learning helps students learn through each other, and through group and partner work can help build their understanding of the topic. This is why collaborative learning was chosen to be used within the lessons. Finally, the 8 ways of learning framework was used. It can be seen in Lesson 3 that a learning map was designed. This is giving all students a chance to succeed, and with such a high Indigenous population in the school, it is important to make linkages to the best way that they learn, so all students are connecting with the community and succeeding. It is acknowledged that within the classroom, working with the stakeholders is extremely important. This will be focusing mainly with working with PTAs, but it is acknowledged that working with parents and other community members is also important. It is acknowledged that strong communication and clear communication when working with the teacher aide is extremely important. Therefore, at the top of the classroom, there is a communication book where the teacher will communicate what is to be done in the lessons with the groups and how that can be completed. This also gives an opportunity for the teacher aides to communicate back to them by writing in how it went, So then the teacher is not stopping their lessons and the teacher aides are still feel like a valued part of the class. Through the lessons, I have used the teacher aide as the resource that they are, not just as a differentiation product or using them on the side. It is acknowledged that positive relationships with our teacher aides can change the way they work in our classroom. Through the lessons, there were a few resources used, majority looking at the smartboards, the whiteboard, the pre-made and printed resources, the picture books, the whiteboard markers, the butcher paper, and the mini whiteboards. These are used to enhance student learning and for the teacher to be able to get student learning in a different way, and they're not always just writing in their books. They can communicate it in different ways within their groups and within their pairs and individually as well. When working in a rural and a remote area, there are a few teacher attributes that a teacher must have. They have to be open to building positive relationships within the community at the school, being involved in the outer community and making an effort to fit in, joining a sporting team or getting to know them, being resilient and also open to change, knowing that it might not go according to plan. Also being aware of all the teaching documents that are there to guide their learning and teaching. They're there as a support tool. Through the lesson sequence, it could be seen that many of the APSTs were met. For example, Standards 1.2, how the students learn, was incorporated into the lessons, where some students could draw or verbalize their answer. The process, product, and content and environment were differentiated for the students to help them learn. And also looking at Standards 2.2, there was a content selection of what would be included in the lessons. The other standards that were used was 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, and 3.4. Also 4.1, 4.2, and 7.1 can all be seen throughout the lessons. Through all the lessons, it can be seen that many things were thought of. The structural features of the classroom and what could be used. The pedagogical features that the teachers used to make sure that every student was being accounted for in the multi-age class. Sometimes teaching in multi-age classes can be difficult, but if it is planned well and the benefits are looked at more closely, it can be seen that it is a real asset for our students.